Hello everyone, Loremaster of Sotek here, back with another entry in the Heroes of Legend DLC series. And this one is going to be the last one that I have easily written up, and then I've got to sit down and do a lot more write-ups, but we'll deal with that when we come to it. So, we've departed the Empire of Man, and now the path turns south into the Badlands, so that we can confront the wild Greenskins. May Gork and Mork bless this offering as we examine two potential candidates to represent the Wa among the heroes of legend. The first up and coming big boss we'll be looking into is the wily wolf rider known as Katella the Hunter. This guy is the closest thing the Greenskins have to a legendary mercenary, as he enjoys just riding around from tribe to tribe looking for exciting situations to join up with. Originally hailing from the Wolflands to the far east of the World's Edge Mountains, Katella grew tired of chasing around Skaven clans and living a boring existence revolving around just trying to survive. So he gathered up fellow wolf riders that shared his view and set out on a life of glory and adventure in the old world. Katella and his lads, which he dubbed the Howlers, quickly made a name for themselves by making critical plays in numerous battles across the Badlands and World's Edge Mountains. They specialized in striking enemy army flanks and peppering the foe with bowfire to lure them out of position, or using their superior riding skills and speed to slip between formations and take out vulnerable targets. The Howlers continued their wandering for years, until one day when Katella caught sight of a massive she-wolf in the peaks of the World's Edge Mountains that he felt drawn to. Determined to claim the beast as his own, the big boss of the Drippin' Fangs tribe pursued the ferocious beast for 3 days and nights without rest, until the creature finally collapsed from exhaustion. Finally, Katella managed to mount the she-wolf and broke her to his will. He named her Olda, the great wolf going on to become a fiercely loyal and deadly mount. Since then, he's gone on to prove himself a master raider, and earned no small amount of respect among Greenskins. Katella famously crossed paths in the Badlands with the great green prophet Wurzag, who gave him the title of the Hunter, for despite his constant raiding and plundering, the big boss has never paused in his relentless pursuit of greatness. One day, he seeks to return to his ancestral homelands as no mere big boss, but a mighty wolf chieftain, so that Katella might break all of the wolf tribes to his will, and sweep across the world in an unstoppable tide like the legendary wolf khans of old. Till then, however, he continues to join up with various greenskin tribes to perfect his art as a scout and deadly outrider. Now, that's the lore portion complete for the Hunter. So, on to how the player should recruit the big boss of the Drippin' Fangs to their faction. I think the best method for him would be either to just successfully start a Wa using the new system we have thanks to Grom and the Punch, or to simply construct a Wolf's Den structure. This is obviously a character you'd want sooner rather than later, seeing as he's just a super hyped up goblin big boss. For unique skills and abilities, the main one that would set Katella apart would be an active skill to represent his magic weapon, the Bone Bow. This surprisingly large ranged weapon should grant him the ability to use a uniquely colored version of the Arrow of Kurnos ability used by Wood Elf characters, which is a pretty effective ability when you're looking for peppering damage or dealing significant damage to unarmored characters. Another constant passive should be the Hunter, which would increase the charge bonus and charge speed of nearby allies around him. The real focus for Katella, though, should be his vastly improved armor stat when compared to other goblin big bosses, in addition to bringing his ranged attacks since he does have a big old bow. I would probably recommend him having an armor rating of around 90? In tabletop, he was very heavily armored, thanks to his Stinky Pelt item. When looking at his skill tree, one of his major upgrades should definitely be Pack Leader, where Olda the Great Wolf grants notable buffs to all Wolf Rider units in the army that he joins. This should include giving them the Skaven ability that increases their movement speed while fleeing, in addition to further stat bonuses. Finally, of course, Katella's super buff when he reaches higher levels should be one named Howlers, which should grant all the Wolf Riders in the army he joins massive buffs, most notably to the range stats of Wolf Rider archers, including missile strength, accuracy, and reload rate reduction. And of course, with his own bow, I would expect him to be one of those characters that can probably fire 360 while moving, which would be quite annoying to deal with. The main weaknesses for Katella are fairly obvious compared to most of the other characters. He would be extremely lacking in substantial armor-piercing damage, and of course would struggle in extended combat scenarios being a Goblin Big Boss character. That being said, his incredible speed and above decent armor save should allow him to fall back and retreat when unfavorable situations arise. For campaign, the Master Rider should of course provide a healthy increase to the amount of funds his parent army gains when in the Raiden camp stance on the campaign map. In addition, I would expect him to give a sizable increase to line of sight and campaign movement for any army that he joins, which are always great skills to have, especially because Greenskins, last I checked, do not have a hero that grants campaign movement. Perhaps he could even unlock a skill at some point that grants a major recruitment rank bonus to all Wolf Riders faction-wide, in addition to lowering their upkeep. Finally, it seems fitting that he could have an increased chance to hinder the campaign movement of enemy armies, as he is the king of misdirecting tactics, at least among the orcs. For appearance, this awesome character doesn't actually have any official artwork or a model, so it'd be exciting to see this special character brought to life by the amazing folks over there at Creative Assembly. The only things noteworthy that the model would need to have are of course his bone bow, which is crafted from a single piece of mammoth bone and strung with wolf gut. Also of course his stinky pelt, which is a thick gruntelope fur coat that offers him his impressive high armor. It would be quite interesting to see how they would make Olda the Great Wolf stand out as well. And I would love to see him as the legendary hero. Now then, there is just one character remaining, and I'll be able to return to some more Ogre Kingdoms Q&As while I have to spend some time writing up the remaining factions. The final hero of legend and greenskin hero we'll be investigating is Snagla Grobspit, the last boss of the Red Venom tribe. In recent decades, much of the Western Empire has been consumed in a long series of grand battles and running skirmishes known as the War of the Dreckwald. This primarily began due to the humans of that nation seeking to dominate the ancient forests, which led them to accidentally probe too close to the forest goblins' holy ground known as the Black Pit. Known also as the Valley of Many Eyes, this is the most revered place in the entire world to the forest goblin tribes, and thus, when threatened, stirred up countless angry tribes into a full-on war against the humans. Despite some early victories, however, the Empire unleashed a great many armies to cut back the trees and root out the arachnid threat once and for all. One of the earliest engagements in this war was when the Empire cleared out the area known as the Gnarlwood, causing the tribes there to swarm into battle. This proved to be a disaster, as the forest goblins were woefully unprepared and found themselves torn apart by superior firepower and organized regiments. When Snagla Grobspit returned to his camp from a long journey to the Black Pit itself, he found his tribe butchered and left out for the crows. It is rumored that while he walked among the corpses, the spider god's voice came to him, the scratching of thousands of spiders filling his mind. All that can be said for certain is Grobspit went to the cannonball-blasted remains of his tribe's Arachnarok spider and tore out the behemoth's fangs. From these, he fashioned a mighty throwing spear and a spiked club. Since then, he has ascended from lone survivor to icon among the forest goblins, gathering up the lost and abandoned to form an elite regiment known as the Death Creepers. known for their terrifying shrieks when charging into battle and habit of charging from unexpected places to ruthlessly destroy unsuspecting foes. It was Snagla and his mob that caused the Forest Road massacre by their spiders leaping from the tree line into the handgunners who were ripped apart in moments. It was Grobspit that led the Death Creepers over the wall of Glomstadt, across the roofs of the sleeping townsfolk and up the sides of the central tower. The lookouts inside didn't even have time to scream as giant spiders crawled through the open windows many stories up, disabling any warning and allowing for the fall of the fortified city. Gotta say, I can't think of many worse ways to die than thinking you're safe in a big stone tower at the center of a walled settlement many feet off the ground, only for freaking horse-sized spiders to come in through the window at the middle of the night. Anyway, that wraps up Snagla's lore intro. I think for him, the best way to unlock the Goblin Big Boss would simply be once the Death Creepers have been recruited the first time, he just becomes available, seeing as they are his personal regiment. For skills and abilities, Grobspit would first and foremost have his throwing spear, the Sting of Snagla, as a one use per battle active. This should be a poisonous and probably green tinted version of the overcast Amber Spear spell, allowing it to just devastate whatever he fires it into. For his spiked club, the Fang Spike, beyond the stat buffs it would give in campaign, I imagine it granting him an active that when used gives him a weapon strength buff and a massive anti-large bonus. Makes sense, as it is a glorified Ragnarok Fang on a stick. The last unique ability I would see him bringing into battle would be called Undulating Cry, which should grant him and nearby allies the Fear special rule in addition to a charge bonus. As a fun fact, in Tabletop, Snagla would give Devastating Charge and Fear to any charging models in his spider unit when running around in Tabletop. Finally, he should have Stalk and Vanguard due to his nature of being a creepy crawly that specializes in sneaking up on foes. For weaknesses, Snagla is much more relatable to the traditional Goblin Big Boss. He thankfully has a shield, but is quite vulnerable to most threats due to a pretty low armor rating. Granted, he does do poison damage on everything he has, so that grants him a bit of relief in a combat scenario, but not much. With no shooting attack outside of a one-use ability and not the highest movement rating on his giant spider, Snagla would require a good amount of cautious use to ensure he doesn't overextend and get trapped in a bad situation. Side note, he does not have regeneration, nor do the Death Creepers in Tabletop. I have no idea why his unit does in Total War Warhammer, they made that up. Anyway, in campaign, Snagla should vastly increase his parent army's ambush success chance to represent his great history at leading such escapades. Obviously, he should grant solid buffs to all Spider Rider units in his army, much like we discussed earlier with Katella. I would also expect to see him have the ability to grant significant untainted corruption to whatever province he's in due to his extreme faith in the Spider God. For higher level skills, his campaign mechanics should revolve around specializing in assassinations and assaulting enemy units. Perhaps he could have a notably higher chance of getting a critical success in assassination attempts, for instance. The final thing I'd expect him to focus on would be having late game skills that provide massive buffs to his army when fighting against Empire factions. Stuff like incredible stat increases, debuffs to enemy leadership, etc. That only leaves his appearance left. Snagla Grobspit is just like Katella the Hunter in that he doesn't have any official model or artwork. The only famous details on this character besides his two magic items are that being from the Red Venom tribe, his giant spider should probably be based on primarily vibrant red colors. Snagla himself is noted for taking feathers from the helmets of Empire commanders and dipping them in the blood of his enemies to cover his headdress, weapons, and shield to give him a fierce red appearance. So it'd be cool to see him have all those like bloody feathers. And that wraps up, well, actually, I do need to put a note in here. Although I have included Snagla Grobspit here in the Heroes of Legends section, I must confess that I do think he would actually function better as a legendary lord who starts in the Black Pit and is the primary Empire antagonist for the western side of the Empire. I know Skarsnik is technically between Bretonnia and the Empire, which is a little awkward, but let's face it, Skarsnik tends to just go south through the mountains and then runs off to Carrick 8 Peaks. So I would like to see Snagla be a legendary lord, so I'll kind of admit, I don't mind introducing him here, but I will confess that Katella the Hunter is probably the only choice I consider legitimate, because he seems like a perfect legendary hero, especially being like the hardcore mercenary he is, where he's just constantly hopping from tribe to tribe. Whereas Snagla, I would really like to see as a free LC or DLC forest goblin war boss, if he got a little bit of an upgrade, obviously. And maybe he could finally give us the gigantic spider mounts, which gigantic spiders are like if you were to take a giant spider, but instead of making it like a small horse, make it into a demigriff. They're much bigger and scarier. And who knows, maybe he could even... I don't think he would need a Ragnarok mount, personally. I think a gigantic spider would be fine. But anyway, that wraps up the Heroes of Legend DLC proposal Part 1. And good God, this ended up being so much longer, this little set, than I thought it would be. I was hoping, yeah, I could knock this out in a few videos, and just the ones we've done so far ended up well over 11,000 words. Anyway, I would love to know, which of these characters would you like to see? I mean, do you think Snagla Grobspit should be a hero legend, or do you agree with me that he should be a legendary lord in the Black Pit, giving the Greenskins kind of that northwestern feel, so they can attack, Norska and Albion, and then run around all those Northern Empire provinces? Or do you think that Katella the Hunter should be a hero of legend? Pause there for a second. Anyway, I hope you guys are really enjoying this series. I'm going to go work on some more Ogre Kingdom stuff, and then once I've gotten maybe 2 or 3 of those out, we will be back with the Heroes of Legend proposals to get through another big old line of races and go from there. So thanks so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye.